I'm a diva. I'm a diva. I'm a diva. I'm a. Na diva is a female. Wil Gafney presents a powerful counter-narrative to the stories that we usually hear about women, especially women in the Pentateuch. The stories of powerlessness, the stories of having no agency, the stories of having nothing but a fearful environment to live in. Wil Gafney does this. She produces this counter-narrative by focusing on Delilah and comparing Delilah to the modern female players, women playing to win, of today, of hip-hop today, like Beyonce, like Rihanna, like Missy Elliott, and many others. Now, Delilah is a very interesting subject in that if you compare her to many of her biblical female counterparts, like that of Bathsheba, the Levite concubines situation, or even Vashti, well, Delilah seems to employ her agency and her wit, and unlike them, she gets away with it. And so what I want to do is take you on this journey of this painting in which I will create a modern artifact using the Delilah of Gafney's Don't Hate the Playa, Hate the Game as my muse. That illustrates, one, the forces of patriarchy that both Delilah and many women in the Pentateuch faced. Number two, how she, like modern female players, was able to subvert the patriarchy. Three, the emergence and codification of the 12 tribes of Israel and Judah during Judges. And four, how the pre-monarchical formation of Israel and Judah impacted the women of the emerging society. Welcome back. I have made progress. I was drawing passionately, and I have come up with what is starting to shape up in my mind is the story that I want to tell through my artifact, the story of Delilah. All right, so I have made quite a bit of progress on my, what I'm going to call it, Delilah and Samson painting. Now, I just want to talk to you about some of the ways that I've been developing this painting over the time since we last talked. But I want to preface it with a couple of thoughts. In the story of Samson and Delilah in Judges 16, there is a question mark that the Womanist Theologian Wil Gafney poses. I found that to be a question. She made it a statement. And that is that Delilah was in fact Jewish. And the reason why she points this out is because many commentaries, and I mean I have read as many commentaries as possible, most commentaries put Delilah as Philistine. And the reason why this is important is because when, in the text, when Samson meets Delilah, he meets her in the town of Sorek. Sorek is actually Judean, and he is, in fact, from the very area that he met her in. Now, the particular of this is that Sorek borders the Philistine territory. So there's a lot of ambiguity. So here's my question. Is she Jewish or is she Philistine? Either way it goes, she was definitely somebody that floated between worlds. And this is one of the primary pillars of a person, a modern day female player. They often float between worlds. A good example of this is Rihanna. You know, she is Barbadian, she's American, she's created this hip hop career with music that is really, really rooted in hip hop. At the same time, she has co-created a $3 billion beauty empire with LVMH, one of the largest beauty brands in the world. So this is an example of somebody that has floated between worlds, much like Delilah. Why is this important? Well, when I was putting this painting together, I tried to understand how could I visualize and symbolize somebody, a woman, a female Playa that floats between worlds. So the technique that I decided on is called cubism. Now, just to give you a little bit of background about cubism, cubism is rooted in the African artifacts that were taken during the colonial expansion of Africa and brought to Europe. And artists like Pablo Picasso, for example, when he became exposed to these African artifacts, he was deeply inspired by them. And he created, along with other people of this time, this movement called Cubism. And it is a perfect confluence of floating between worlds. It's both African in origin, but it has, the European lens laid over it. So I chose Cubism to represent Delilah, somebody who is a female player that is floating between worlds. We are done. I have finished the painting and I am very excited about the completion of this painting. Now, let me just fill you in on a couple of the final details and how this relates to modern times. Number one, I did carry through the Cubist aesthetic into the lion, and one of the things that I wanted to share about this lion is it represents not only the world in which Delilah inhabited, but also it represents Samson, is that during the time of Judges, it was basically right after the collapse of the Bronze Era. We enter into the Iron Age, and during the Iron Age is when the Israelite sort of faction comes together. And Samson is from the tribe of Dan. The tribe of Dan was a part of the Sea People. Now, if you remember, the Sea People are what we now refer to as the Philistines in the Bible in modern day Palestine. And so during the Bronze Age collapse, the Sea People were a very integral part of the warfare that took place in the ancient Near East and helped to usher in the collapse of the Bronze Age. So I thought it would be great to add a coastal background just to really capture the fact that that Samson was from the tribe of Dan, and Dan was originally of the Sea People. The final thing that I wanted to highlight as it pertains to Samson is that it's not lost on me that in the story in Judges, it starts off with Samson going to the Philistine region. He encounters a lion, and when he encounters that lion, he kills the lion, and then he comes back in a little while and he eats the honey that has come into existence via the carcass of the lion. So I thought it would be amazing to add this honey into the story, because much like Samson took the honey, Delilah wrangled the lion, which was Samson, and she got the honey. And so I wanted to just add that as a nice little touch. Last but not least, I have added, you have to get really close up. I have added a faint image of a woman into the skyline of this painting. The reason why I've done that is that both Gafney as a womanist theologian and Dunbar as a womanist theologian, as we've read in class, have looked at the absence of names of the primary women in a lot of the stories in ancient texts, especially in the story of Judges. Samson's mom, the Philistine prostitute, Samson's wife, none of these women are named. And so I wanted to pay homage to those women as well. So this painting is a mixture of a number of modern art techniques, from Cubism to Impressionism, but it's really meant to tell the story of the Bible, especially the story of Delilah, in a contemporary form, much like my muse, Wil Gafney, has done. I hope you love this painting as much as I do, and thank you for, joining me on this journey.